Welcome. We're jumping straight into the legislative action from last week, focusing on the really key stuff. The debates, the big votes, the nominations that shaped things in Congress.
Yeah, we're looking specifically at October 14th through the 17th, 2025. A four-day stretch where, well, the Senate floor was pretty dramatic.
Dramatic is one word for it, a real procedural standoff on some huge issues. But at the same time, you saw this almost clockwork movement on judicial nominations.
It really was a tale of two senates, wasn't it? You had paralysis on funding the government, the absolute basic function, but then this hyper-efficiency almost on getting executive business done.
And those two things, they seem opposite, but they're connected.
Absolutely connected. And that's what we want to unpack for you today, how that leverage works.
So that's the plan. We'll get into the sources, look at those contentious procedural votes, track the appropriations bills, the money bills, and sort of decode the strategy behind the judicial nominations. We're going beyond just the numbers.
Looking at the why behind the votes.
Exactly. Now, before we really dive in, please, if you haven't already, take just a second to like and subscribe. It genuinely helps us keep bringing you this kind of analysis.
It really does. Okay, so let's start with that central drama, appropriations in the Senate.
Right. The main fight wasn't even about what was in the funding bills, was it? It was about whether they could even start talking about them.
That's the crucial point, the procedural block. We saw repeated failures to get the 60 votes needed to invoke cloture.
Okay, explain cloture again, just quickly. It closes debate, right?
Right. But specifically here, it was failing on the motion to proceed to the bill. That means they couldn't even get the bill formally onto the Senate floor for debate.
So 60 votes just to start debating the funding bill?
Exactly. If you can't get 60 votes for the motion to proceed, the bill is basically stuck in limbo. The opposition can just, filibuster the motion to even consider it.
And that prevents any amendments, any discussion, any passage. Total roadblock.
Total roadblock. It signals really deep opposition, not just to details, but to the whole thing, or maybe using it as leverage for something else entirely. They're stopping the policy debate before it can even begin.
Okay, so let's get specific. This procedural wall came up again and again on the most critical bill.
House Resolution 5371.
Right, House Resolution 5371, the Continuing Appropriations and Extensions Act for Fiscal Year 2026. This is the stopgap funding, the CR, keeps the government running.
The essential one. And the timeline last week really tells the story. Tuesday, October 14th, first attempt to get cloture on the motion to proceed.
How did that go?
Failed. 49 yeas, 45 nays. That was vote number 571.
49, so way short of the 60 needed. 11 votes short right off the bat.
11 votes short. Shows the opposition was organized and holding firm.
And then what happened immediately after that vote failed?
The majority leader entered a motion to reconsider the vote.
Which sounds technical, but it's basically saying we reserve the right to vote on this exact same thing again. Keeps it alive, keeps the pressure on.
Precisely. It prevents the bill from just dying quietly. And they use that option pretty quickly.
The very next day, Wednesday the 15th.
Yep. They brought it up again upon reconsideration. Vote number 572.
And the numbers?
Slightly different, but same result. 51 yeas, 44 nays.
Okay, so they picked up 2 yay votes. Someone was working the phones.
Someone's definitely working the phones. But still, 51 is 9 votes short of 60. They gained a couple of votes, but they were no closer to actually breaking the filibuster. The opposition bloc held strong.
So 2 failed attempts just to start debate on keeping the government funded. Did they try again?
Oh, yes. Thursday, October 16th. Third time's the charm. Nope.
Still blocked.
Still blocked. 51 yeas, 45 nays this time. Vote number 573. Essentially the same outcome as Wednesday.
3 failed cloture votes on the motion to proceed on the CR.
It's pretty remarkable. It suggests the opposition feels the political risk of, maybe even a shutdown looming is less bad than whatever is in that bill or whatever they're trying to extract by blocking it.
So what is driving it? Is it specific policies tucked into the CR or spending levels or something else entirely?
It's hard to say definitively without being in the room, but blocking the motion to proceed like this usually means there are major disagreements about the substance maybe riders the opposition hates or maybe spending priorities they demand that aren't included. By blocking it procedurally, they force those negotiations off the floor behind closed doors. It's leverage.
Legislative hardball, basically.
At the highest level, yeah. And even after that third failure, the sources say another motion to reconsider was entered.
So they're not giving up. They're teeing it up for another try.
Exactly. The next showdown on House Resolution 5371 is scheduled for Monday, October 20th at 5:30 p.m. fourth attempt coming up.
Okay, so the main government funding bill is completely stalled. But that wasn't the only appropriations measure hitting this wall, right?
No, it wasn't. The
Go
resistance
ahead.
spread, maybe predictably, maybe strategically, to defense funding as well.
House Resolution 4016, the Department of Defense Appropriations Act for Fiscal Year 2026. Usually defense funding is, well, treated differently.
Often seen as must-pass, politically risky to block, but not last week. On Thursday, October 16th, same day as the third CR failure, the cloture vote on the motion to proceed to the DoD bill also failed.
What were the numbers on that one?
50 yeas to 44 nays, vote number 575.
50. So again, 10 votes short of 60.
Oh.
Almost identical numbers to the CR votes.
Almost identical. It really reinforces the idea that this isn't just about one bill. It's a systematic, strategic block targeting the majority's entire approach to FY26 appropriations.
Holding up both general government funding and defense funding.
Simultaneously, it maximizes the pressure, forces the majority to negotiate on potentially a whole range of issues if they want to get any funding passed.
And just like the CR, they entered a motion to reconsider the failed DoD vote.
Immediately. So that fight is also paused, but very much alive and ready to be brought back up.
Okay, so one side of the Senate, total procedural gridlock on funding. Let's pivot now, because the other side of the Senate's work, the executive calendar, looked very different. Judicial nominations were actually moving.
They were. And crucially, as the sources show, that movement was often directly, explicitly linked to the fate of those stalled appropriations bills.
That's the leverage point again, isn't it? Using the must-pass nature or the desired passage of funding bills to force action on nominations.
Exactly. In a Senate where floor time is precious and obstruction is easy, the majority has to tie its priorities together. You want this funding vote? Fine, but we're also getting a vote on this judge. That kind of thing.
So let's look at the first success story on that front. Harold D. Moody III, nominated for district judge in the Northern District of Alabama.
Right. Contrast this with the appropriations votes. On Thursday, October 16th, the same day the CR and DoD funding votes failed, the Senate successfully invoked cloture on the Moody nomination.
And the vote count?
62 yeas to 34 nays. Vote number 574.
62. So they cleared the 60-vote hurdle comfortably.
Comfortably. It shows there was bipartisan support for Moody himself, and critically, it shows that when the votes are there, or when a deal is made, the Senate can move nominations forward efficiently.
But you mentioned a deal, a linkage. How was Moody tied to the appropriations mess?
The procedural reports detail an agreement that the cloture vote for Moody was essentially scheduled contingent upon the Senate dealing with House Resolution 5371, the CR.
So regardless of whether the CR cloture vote passed or failed, the Moody cloture vote was going to happen afterward.
That seems to be the structure. It locked in the time for the nomination vote, preventing it from getting pushed back indefinitely by the appropriations fight. It ensured the nomination moved forward.
Okay, so cloture was invoked on Moody. What's the next step for him?
The final confirmation vote. An up or down vote, simple majority needed. And that's scheduled, interestingly, for no earlier than Monday, October 20th.
Right after that fourth attempt on the CR cloture vote, the linkage continues.
And it gets more intricate. Beyond Moody, the leadership set up what's often called a nomination domino effect, or sequential chaining.
Meaning they queued up several nominees, one after the other.
Exactly. They use procedural motions to link the consideration of multiple nominees together, creating a preset pathway. It maximizes efficiency if, and it's a big if, they break the initial logjam.
So if that Monday CR vote finally succeeds, or some deal is reached, it doesn't just unlock the CR, it potentially unlocks a whole series of nomination votes automatically.
That's the strategy. It leverages that potential breakthrough moment to push through several priorities at once.
Okay, let's trace that chain. Who's lined up after Moody?
First in the queue, directly tied to the disposition of House Resolution 5371, is Ann Lee Gaylord Moe, nominated for the Middle District of Florida. A cloture motion was filed on her nomination. She's waiting right behind the CR.
So CR outcome determines Moe cloture vote timing. Who's next?
Next is William W. Mercer, nominated for the District of Montana. His cloture vote timing is tied specifically to the disposition of the Moe nomination.
So CR has to be dealt with, then Moe, then Mercer gets his cloture vote. Is there another link?
One more mentioned in the sources for this sequence. Stephen Chad Meredith, nominated for the Eastern District of Kentucky. His cloture vote is tied to the disposition of the Mercer nomination.
Wow. So CR unlocks Moe, Moe unlocks Mercer, Mercer unlocks Meredith. That's potentially 4 judges teed up Moody's confirmation, plus cloture votes on Moe, Mercer, and Meredith, all dependent on that Monday appropriations vote.
It's a way for the majority to say, if we get moving, we are going to really get moving on judges.
Yeah.
It bundles the fights, minimizes the chances for obstruction on each individual nominee once the first domino falls.
So for you listening, that Monday 5:30 p.m. vote on House Resolution 5371 isn't just about government funding. It's potentially the key to unlocking a cascade of judicial confirmations.
And while all this high-stakes drama was playing out on the Senate floor, related work was happening more quietly in committee.
Right, the Senate Judiciary Committee was moving other nominations, not lifetime judgeships, but important roles.
U.S. attorneys. The committee ordered favorably reported the nominations for Thomas Albus to be U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Missouri and Adam Mildred for the Northern District of Indiana.
These are the chief federal prosecutors in those districts, right?
Yeah.
Setting law enforcement priorities.
Exactly. Crucial roles, and the fact they move smoothly out of committee, even amidst the floor battles, shows that some consensus nominations can still advance through the regular process.
Okay, so we've seen the appropriations deadlock, the linked nomination strategy. What about actual policy bills? Were committees advancing legislation on other domestic issues?
Yes, absolutely. When the floor gets jammed like this, committee work often continues, sometimes even more productively, laying the groundwork for future floor action if things ever loosen up.
Let's look at some of those. There seems to have been a cluster of activity around Indian land and tribal affairs.
There was 4 specific Senate bills concerning tribal issues were reported out of committee. This often involves addressing very specific, long-standing historical or legal matters for particular tribes.
Okay, what were they?
First, Senate 550. This aims for an equitable settlement of certain Indian land disputes concerning land in Illinois. Land claims can be incredibly complex, dating back centuries sometimes. This bill moving forward suggests progress toward resolving one of those specific disputes.
Then Senate 621. This one sounds interesting. To accept the request to revoke the charter of incorporation of the Lower Sioux Indian community in the state of Minnesota. Why does Congress get involved in revoking a tribal charter?
Well, under the Indian Reorganization Act from the 1930s, many tribes adopted federally approved charters and constitutions. If a tribe decides later that structure no longer serves them or they want to change their governance model, they often need congressional action to formally amend or revoke that foundational federal document. It's part of the government-to-government relationship.
Okay, that makes sense. What else?
Senate 622. This one amends the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe Reservation Restoration Act to transfer additional federal land to the Leech Lake Band in Minnesota. So this is directly adding land back to the tribe's reservation trust lands.
A concrete restoration effort. And the fourth one?
Senate 748. This seeks to reaffirm that the Indian Reorganization Act applies to the Lytton Rancheria of California.
Why the need for reaffirmation? Isn't it assumed to apply?
Not always. Sometimes a tribe's status under specific federal laws can be challenged or become ambiguous due to historical policies or court rulings. Reaffirmation bills like this provide crucial legal clarity, confirming the tribe's sovereign status and eligibility for federal programs and protections under that specific act. It removes doubt.
So these 4 bills together show the committee tackling very specific but very important issues of tribal land, governance, and legal status.
Moving beyond tribal affairs, committees also advanced bills related to infrastructure, commerce, and transportation. Often quite specific targets here, too.
Like Senate 1442. This amends existing transportation law about human trafficking awareness signs.
Yes, specifically making projects for installing these signs at rest stops eligible for certain federal transportation funding. It's using infrastructure money for a public safety and awareness campaign, recognizing rest stops as key locations. It was reported with an amendment, so it got some work done in committee.
Interesting intersection of policy areas. What about Senate 1872? This sounds more industrial policy focused.
It is. It directs the Secretary of Commerce to study the feasibility of manufacturing products for critical infrastructure sectors in the United States.
So looking at onshoring production for things like the energy grid, communication networks, water systems.
Exactly. It's a direct reaction to recent supply chain vulnerabilities. Can we make more of these essential components domestically? This study is step 1 in figuring that out. Aims to boost resilience and maybe national security. Reported with an amendment, too.
And a couple of science and safety measures.
Right. Senate 320, which authorizes the Earthquake Hazards Reduction Act of 1977, basically re-upping the federal program for earthquake preparedness, monitoring, and mitigation research. Also reported with an amendment.
Keeping that program going. And Senate 190?
This one aims to enhance the operations of the North Pacific Research Board.
Why is that important?
The North Pacific is a huge, vital ecosystem. Fisheries, climate impacts, shipping. This board coordinates research. Enhancing its operations means better data for managing those resources, likely involving international cooperation too, again reported with an amendment.
Okay, so that's Senate committee action. Anything notable reported out of committee on the House side regarding domestic policy?
One piece stood out related to the District of Columbia, House Resolution 5163,
And its purpose.
to prohibit camping on public property in the District of Columbia.
So Congress weighing in directly on a local D.C. issue related to homelessness and public space use.
Precisely. It highlights that unique, often tense relationship where Congress has oversight over the district's local affairs. This bill moving forward brings that federal versus local control debate to the forefront again.
Right. Now, besides the big fights and the committee policy work, there's always the more routine business, isn't there? Things that pass without much fuss.
Yeah, even when major bills are gridlocked, the Senate still handles commemorative resolutions, designations, things that often pass by unanimous consent or voice vote, part of the day-to-day function.
What were some of those last week?
Well, there was Senate Resolution 455. This one commended and congratulated the Summerlin South Little League team from Nevada for winning the U.S. Championship at the Little League World Series in 2025. Standard feel-good resolution.
Nice for them. Any others like that?
Senate Resolution 456 commemorated the 40th anniversary of the first flight of the Space Shuttle Atlantis, recognizing a milestone in space exploration history.
Okay. And then there were several resolutions designating specific weeks for awareness or recognition.
Yes, quite a few. Senate Resolution 449 designated the week starting October 12, 2025 as National Wildlife Refuge Week.
Promoting awareness of the refuge system.
Then Senate Resolution 452 designated the week starting October 19, 2025 as National Character Counts Week.
Focusing on ethics and values.
And Senate Resolution 453 designated the week starting September 7, 2025, a bit retroactively there, as National Direct Support Professionals Week.
Recognizing healthcare and support workers. So these kinds of resolutions, they sail through while the big funding bills are stuck.
Generally, yes. They don't require the 60-vote threshold for cloture, so they move easily if there's broad agreement, providing a contrast to the procedural battles elsewhere.
Okay, so let's try to pull it all together. Looking back at that week, October 14th to 17th, it really was a split screen in Congress, especially the Senate.
Absolutely. On one side, you had this intense procedural warfare, gridlock. 3 times they failed to even start debate on the main government funding bill, House Resolution 5371, couldn't get near the 60 votes needed.
Paralyzed on the fundamentals. But on the other screen.
Highly coordinated, strategic, and successful maneuvering on judicial nominations. Look at the Moody Cloture votes, 62 votes, sailing through on the same day the funding votes failed miserably around the 50-vote mark.
It really highlights how central that 60-vote cloture threshold is and how selectively the opposition deployed the filibuster, right? They'd let a consensus judge move, but absolutely block contested appropriations.
That 3/5 requirement is the gatekeeper for almost everything controversial. And last week, the gate was firmly shut on appropriations.
Which leads directly to the big question hanging over everything now.
The entire Senate agenda, particularly that whole chain of nominations we talked about, Moe, Mercer, Meredith, it all seems directly tethered to what happens next with House Resolution 5371.
So as we wrap up, the thought to leave you with is this. That upcoming vote, scheduled for Monday, October 20th at 5:30 p.m., the 4th attempt to break the filibuster on the motion to proceed to the CR. Its outcome is pivotal.
It really is. You have to consider, if they finally do break that blockade, what happens? Does the Senate suddenly unlock concerning Moody, moving rapidly through cloture votes on the other nominees? Is that procedural slingshot finally launched?
Or, if that vote fails again, for the 4th time, what then? Does the majority have to completely rethink its strategy, pull the bill, start negotiations again under even more pressure as funding deadlines loom? Does the executive calendar just stay frozen?
Will Monday unlock the floor, or will the budget fight continue to hold everything else hostage? That's what we'll be watching.
That is definitely the tape hanger. Thanks for joining us to unpack the congressional week. We'll be back soon with more analysis.